name? Asintu.
I'm just going for a video. He's taking a photograph.
Know this rich bitch ain't got skim. I'ma go down on a lyrical whim. Words so heavy, pull me up with the blim. When I put the trigger, you'll be left with the limb. Why this transition from, towards being an independent artist?
Playback singing was my only option back in 2008 because independent music wasn't a thing at that point. Although I was already writing and singing with my then band Soul Sonic. And usually in India, especially back then, the female narrative was so non-existent. But the narrative is not coming from a woman. It's always a man writing about his fantasy of what a woman should be.
What is the reality of the industry today and what is your goal? Where do you want to go?
The rest of the world kind of operates kind of the same. India has its own industry. Vastly different how we operate with singers and artists in India because the music business knowledge is lacking. The climate that was when I was in the industry over here, like 2008, 2010, to now, 15, 16 years later, independent artists have a lot more power with social media and their own leverage that they can build through virality. But I still see a lot of artists giving their rights up just for that immediate surge.
How we can make this happen rather than just
Hi everybody, welcome to Rashmi Conversations. Today's guest, she's a diva. She's a part of an industry which is projected to be 37 billion by 2026. I met her when I walked into a pub and I was just mesmerized with her music. Many of you might know her. Welcome, Suvi. You have been a musician and artist for over 2 decades and you worked with icons like A.R. Rahman, Anirudh, Yuvan Shankar Raja. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Everybody knows you as an artist, but who is Suvi?
Well, who is Suvi? I've answered this question a lot of times, so I am glad you asked this word. Suvi is a representation of someone who is unapologetically themselves, does not feel hinged to one particular aspect of life. Like I have a verse in a song that goes multi-talented, multilingual, multidimensional, because you don't have to be put in a basket. So Suvi is a representation even for me to be everything that I want to be. So it's like never be anything less than everything that you are is what Suvi in a single sentiment is.
I understand that you kind of found your footing in the industry and made a mark for yourself after 2008 with the song Koda Na Kodi. How did your life change and transform after that?
Well, actually, post that song, life didn't change as much because I was already in the music industry. When it truly changed was I was in college studying to become a forensic scientist. I was pursuing a degree in biotechnology in Ethraj College. And I chanced upon an audition. One thing led to another. I won the audition amidst 10,000 plus kids at that point. And then my life changed overnight when I made it into the top 5 because now we were a pop band signed with Sony Music. And I was balancing advanced zoology and biotechnology on one side with being a pop star on the other side. So it was me, Benny Dayal, Anaita Nair from the movie Chak De, Bhargavi Pillai, and Arjun Shashi. The 5 of us had our world just topsy-turvy overnight. So that's really when my life changed. I was 17 years old at that point in 2004. Yeah.
Wow, that's something like that happening for a 17-year-old. It must have been mind-boggling.
I couldn't even, fathom. I had no idea what my life 20 years from then, now is going to look like at that point. It was crazy.
Everybody knows you. You made a mark in the industry. Why this transition from, towards being an independent artist now?
It's very simple. I started off as a pop artist with S5, the band I was just talking to you about. And then as I graduated from college, I was like, what's the next big thing I want to do? I was already enjoying the limelight. I'm not even going to lie. I like being on stage. So it's definitely not going to be forensic scientist after I tasted what being an artist felt like. Like I wanted it to be more into the artmanship of music and song and dance and all of that. Because I was always creative as a kid. Coming from that, going into playback singing was my only option back in 2008 because independent music wasn't a thing at that point. Although I was already writing and singing with my then band Soul Sonic, and we were like the only soul band in the city doing all this thing. Besides the rock bands in town, Chennai was like known for a lot of rock music, right? But I was already doing hip hop, soul, R&B, and there was no one listening to that music at that point. But I was still doing that, and at that point, I was balancing this life of being a playback singer, singing for these big music directors, and also writing my own music and singing Rihanna and singing pop song covers and performing those gigs. And I was trying to maintain this balance, and I realized that I am more than just a playback singer. I am a forefront singer. Like I write songs, I compose music, I make beats, I come up with concepts. I like to express my creativity through words and melody. And that was not possible in playback singing. It's still not possible, right? You're put in a box to explain the narrative of someone else's story, someone else's character. And usually in India, especially back then, the female narrative was so non-existent. Like now we have a little bit more female forward storytelling. Back then it was all just very chauvinistic, male dominant movies. So most of my songs ended up being girl running behind the boy. There was no empowerment in the message, or it was a vamp, vixen song, which I'm okay with. But the narrative is not coming from a woman. It's always a man writing about his fantasy of what a woman should be. And all that gave me the ick, honestly. So, and I'm very, like, as you could tell, I'm very forward with my communication. A lot of people don't like that, especially in the playback industry. So for me, I decided the best next move was to, while I was in the highs of during the playback singing era, I decided I needed to go somewhere, study the music industry on an international level, learn the music business. And luckily, I won a Fulbright scholarship to study in a school in Los Angeles. So I just left. And that I have not looked back since. I've been working with a lot of producers from the US, UK, Australia, K-pop industry. And I have about 250 songs of mine in music publishing libraries around the world. And I compose and write. The only market I've not been able to crack as an independent artist, and I think it's just, just time. It's just going to take a little bit more time. I'm almost there. It's been the Indian market, That just goes to show how slow the advancement for an independent female artist is in India. Whereas everywhere else, they love that. They love the message of empowerment coming for women from women. And that's constantly the songs that I'm writing, as you could tell from the show that you win.
Yeah. I loved your number. I mean, the first song I heard, and it was like Rich Bitch Syndrome. And it was like, I was like, what is happening? It was so good. The beats were so peppy. It was really good.
Thank you.
So, you had embarked on your entrepreneurial journey in this industry as an independent artist, which is slow, you said, and it will have a lot of challenges from what I'm hearing from you. How does the industry actually work today?
The independent artist industry?
The music industry. As in, like, something would have spurred you to create this kind of a platform, the idea, the Suvi Social, the idea that you're coming up with. There would have been a reason for it, right? What is the reality of the industry today, and what is your goal? Where do you want to go?
Well, the music industry is bifurcated right in the middle between the world, the rest of the world, and India. It's very different between these two regions. The rest of the world kind of operates kind of the same. India has its own industry. So for me, when I went, being from the playback industry, and then when I went and learned the rest of the world's music industry, I realized, oh wow, it is vastly different how we operate with singers and artists in India, because the music business knowledge is lacking. There is a lot of talent, there's a lot of skill, but the opportunity for artists coming from a perspective of let's develop the creative talent of a singer or a songwriter is not the focus. Over here, it's usually the label or the production houses or even the music director. They are the ones who lead the game. The singers are just a voice, right? There's no, or the lyricists. Even it's like a whole team. It's a beautiful industry. It's its own unique self, but not everybody gets a share of the pie. And in that sense, it's very different because in the US, now if you take, let's take a very popular song, Umbrella by Rihanna, right? There's like 10 million writers on that song, Rihanna singing it. Everybody on that song right now is wealthy because of how well that song did. That one song is going to feed that writer, says there are 6 writers. One of the writers, it's going to feed him and his family for 100 years. That's not the situation in India. Here, the IP is bought out for a small amount of money, and then the artist is left to fend for themselves. So if you as an artist are not proactive, are not about your business, then you're done. Like, okay, I made 10 lakhs for this one song, but now I don't want to do anything more. That 10 lakhs is all you're going to get.
When you say parity, can you give me a sense in terms of numbers? Like what, just an example. You can just take any song that, you might know, any artist. If they are being bought out and what the label actually earns, how does it work?
Oh, yeah, I definitely can. And I'm not going to hold myself back on this because this is also information for me. Over here, an artist will say there's an up-and-coming, very talented 18-year-old artist singer, and the A&R and the label found out about this artist. They'll go to them and be like, hey, we believe in you. We want to help you. We're going to do all these things. It's like the dream come true for an artist, right? When someone comes like that and offers those words, big words to you. So they're like, yes, already in a state of awe. Now the label will go over to this singer, songwriter, and be like, we will give you, say, 25 lakhs. You will write a song for us, you will compose the melody for us, you will work with the music producer to create the whole music, you will shoot a video for us, all in that little budget, and that big budget from the artist's perspective. But what they don't reveal is because of the massive machinery these labels have, now this 25 lakh investment they've made in an artist who they know for a fact is really good is going to generate them, say, 2 crores.
Wow, that's like a huge
The disparity.
difference.
And the artist doesn't see any of that. And the artist getting paid 25 lakhs, you have to understand, she had to pay for the music video. She had to pay the music director. She had to pay all of the crew that worked with her. So she probably made some 1 lakh for a song that the label is now going to generate anywhere between 1 crore or 2 crores because they have the machinery to pump money behind it. So the downside is there is a disparity in the money that the artist sees from their IP, their intellectual property. But the upside is there's exposure. Now, because the song has generated so much money, it means the song is also viral. It's also like giving you a lot of opportunities. So most artists in India, what they do is they're like, I will forsake my intellectual property in order
for that one number.
For that one number. So most people will go from doing that for like on a single song basis until they hit that virality, and then they'll be like, all right, I'm done with working with you. I'm going to go on my own. Like, for example, Hanuman Kind is a great example for that. He was working on a song-by-song basis with Def Jam Records. And then when Big Dogs, the song became insane, he got signed with Capitol Records, which is an American record company, who offered a better deal. Like, no matter how much they worked with a homegrown label, as soon as an international label came into with a better deal, him and his team felt the need to take that deal because they know that the deal here in India is not very good. So that has to somehow match, that has to meet, because at the end of the day, you can't be taking advantage of artists, right? Like the IP has to belong to you as an artist.
So, what is your idea? What is the platform that you are building, and how is it going to impact the future young artists coming into the industry? And is there something like that in the US or outside India already?
Yes. So for me, I was starting to think from a perspective of me as an artist. Like, what would I want to work with, and how would it make the most sense for the label as well as the artist? So that's when I started thinking about a concept, a system, and a SaaS-based platform where all of these services that a label would provide, right? Like from the music creation to the video to the artwork to the branding to the marketing. This is basically what a label is providing, and the distribution. That's the final leg. All of these aspects, if we can provide on one platform in an a la carte manner. So now you're a 16-year-old artist. You want to be an artist, right? And you can go onto this website, sign up on a subscription basis, and pick, okay, at this point, I only want to make songs. I'm not ready to release it. I'm not ready to make music videos. So you can go and pick that service, pay for that service on a subscription basis, and get that done for you. So now once you have, say, like 4 or 5
So
songs,
you have a group of musicians
we'll
who
have
will help.
service providers basically on the back end of the platform.
So they'll come up with their lyrics and the music and
Yes.
the maybe the music
Yeah,
composition.
whatever that is. Like sometimes an artist comes with being able to produce by themselves or write their lyrics or write their own melodies. So whatever is lacking will be provided as a service, right? So we'll create the catalog. And it's also made in such a way that no matter what you do, at the end, you as an artist will retain the IP. Your masters will be yours. We will work on a profit sharing basis. So this way, there is more empowerment to the artist. You'll probably not see, crazy ups and downs, but you will be able to live as a 9 to 5 level of working artmanship. That's kind of what's missing now. Now we have like 3 or 4 top tier artists who make a lot of money, and the rest of them are all struggling artists. I want to balance the playing field where if there are 1,000 talented individuals, 700 of them can make songs, create their own ecosystem of fans, sell directly to their fans instead of having a middleman, and make a living. Because that's kind of what's also happening on a high scale in the US. Because back in the day, it was stardoms, right? Like Michael Jackson, Beyonce, all these insanely high upper A tier artists. And then there was nobody else. But now what's happening is instead of constantly making $10 million a year as an artist, there are several like $500,000 money, income making artists, several 200,000. And $200,000 as an artist to do what you love to do is an incredible full-time job,
Yeah.
And that is what's missing as creators for me, which sends people into these mental surges. And so to kind of balance and level the playing field is my main goal, because I see so many people, creative kids, wanting to be an artist, but they have to have a 9 to 5 job and then only spend an hour in a day so they can have money while also be pursuing their career. And then they'll give up at one point because the family is like, you're not making any money. All of that regular shindig, right? So to kind of like level the playing field, this is the agenda that I have,
So, your show at Origami, you mentioned that was the first of its kind that you planned to introduce to India, starting with Tamil Nadu, Chennai. And you introduced 2 artists before you. Can you explain a little bit about the ideology behind the show and how you feel that kind of a show will nurture young artists going forward?
So the way this show came to be started off as I was trying to go watch shows like that and they didn't exist in Chennai. And I'm like, why is this an untapped market in Chennai, especially a place where there's so much talent? If you notice any like big artists, even as a playback singer, they're all like exports, from Tamil Nadu, right? Like Bedi Dayal, but someone I can always think of very quickly. They're all artists who've gone from here to Bombay because the opportunities are better there. So my goal was not to do something as pioneer something in India. It was mostly to pioneer something in Chennai because we have so much talent here. We have a lot of, homegrown creatives. And like my dancer choreographer, she is from Chennai and she put that whole choreography together. We worked together for like 2 months trying to do this whole heels thing because that's not something that Chennai has ever seen, to actually dance on heels. So the idea was not to do something for the first time in India. It was to do something local, community-based, because for me, that's where most of my listeners are from. Out of my 1 million listeners on Spotify, I got 800,000 of them are from Chennai, not even like Tamil Nadu, Chennai. So I was like, okay, so there are these people, then let's give them a show. Let's do something that will cater to their yearning to want to listen to music live from me, right? So that's how the idea came to be. And after the show was done, most people in the audience, they were like, we have not seen anything like this.
I definitely haven't.
Yeah.
It was new for me. I mean, I've heard of such opening acts in Coldplay and such concerts, but I personally not attended a local show like that.
Yeah, and we can, we don't have the ecosystem for it. And we pulled teeth to make it happen. It was not easy. And we're still dealing with the after effects of the ecosystem not being present, like to convey the vision as to what we want it to be and where it could go. It's almost impossible to get someone to see that vision because there's one side of it where people are like, people in Chennai don't spend money. I think that's not true.
Oh God, that's not true at all. I mean,
so.
I think here you have spending capacity and they have a tasteful sense of spending.
Yes, I see it. I
yeah.
see it and I'm like, it's not that they don't have a spending capacity. They have a tasteful spending desire, which means we have to give them a tasteful show. And there are no tasteful shows. It's usually like a bunch of, like, I don't know, hooligans dancing and going crazy, which is fun if that's what the audience want. But there are people like you and I, we crave a show where the women can feel safe, that they can feel safe to express them. So wear whatever they want to wear and like dance and not be like, if you noticed at the show, there were more women going crazy than men, which is complete opposite to the narrative you would see in a concert.
Actually, the reason for that is because the artist was a woman.
Yeah.
And that kind of automatically, diffuse the discomfort that I would usually feel to just be moving around in the crowd.
Yes.
Because the artist was a woman.
Yeah, and it's also like I intentionally with my social, like the little marketing skills that I have, nothing like you guys. We were targeting more women through our ads. We were creating videos like reels that were speaking to women more, and the whole heels angle was straight up women. We did a heels choreography for one of my hit songs, Koda na Kodi, which had about 30 people sign up in one session to come and learn the choreography with Shweta, my choreographer. So we were intentionally targeting a lot of women because that's the lack I was feeling. Any DJ event I would go to, or any, like even if it was a female artist performing, as a female artist who's performed in Island Grounds and Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium for Yuvan Shankar Raj and all these big artists, I always see male. I always see men in the audience. The women will be like peppered in here and there. And so for me, I was very clear that my songs are talking to women, and the narrative is to encourage and empower women. I can't be singing this to a bunch of dudes, which I'm okay with. So the idea was to attract the women because the message is to them. And then there's all these hot women dancing around. The dudes, they're like, oh my God.
So why wouldn't
I'm
they
so,
be there?
Yeah, like so many men. The guys who came were like, I'm so glad I drove 3 hours to come to your show.
It was like a no-lose for everybody.
Yeah, I would have regretted so much if I didn't witness this show, because they also saw how much fun the women were having. Because when the women have fun, the party is fun. But if it's just a bunch of, no offense, if it's just men, it's nobody wants to be there unless you're there for something else. So that's definitely the angle we approached for that show.
So, Suvi, how do you plan to reach out to the artists who are the right target audience for your ecosystem?
Well, I always believe in putting out my best out there and then hoping for the magnets to be attracted. Right after you asked me that question, when we were talking about this earlier, I had one artist from Bombay. She reached out to me asking about, hey, I noticed you just did a show. I've been approached with a similar request from a club here in Bombay. I don't know what to tell them. And I was like, hey, so I'm putting together this ecosystem that helps artists to kind of maneuver through these deal makings and understanding your rights as an artist. We'll talk about that, in the future. But for now, send me over their message to you. I'll guide you through the process as to how it
So,
would do.
your ecosystem, you will be helping these artists preserve their IP even through enabling paperwork and all of the back-end work.
Yes, so that is my strength. I don't personally sit and go through the paperwork, but I have a team that can help understand, hey, this is a terrible deal. Let's talk a better deal for you, because that's what I went and learned in the US. I was like, oh my God, as a singer, as a playback singer, I have been duped. Like, just taking Koda Na Kodi, for example, right? That song, I can tell you openly, I was paid like 5,000 rupees to sing it. And at this point, it has like 100 million streams on Spotify, which is equivalent to, so 1 million is about $400. So you can calculate.
Okay. I can't calculate like that, but that's a lot. That's a big number.
Exactly. So as a singer, we didn't see any of that money. And the song's identity is my voice. So that's a joke, you know what I'm saying? So the more artists understand their rights, then I don't have to be the sore thumb sticking out fighting for my rights. We're fighting for it together unanimously,
So, what has it been like? You have been recently very vocal about you being an independent artist and, rights of the young artists, independent artists. In some way, you can say it's like having this kind of a fight against the larger labels, right? I mean, it's not explicitly that way, but in some sense where you're saying that, hey, this is what's wrong, but this is what it should be like, and this is what I'm offering you because that's how the rest of the world functions. How has it affected you in your career today, like in the market, in the industry today? Are you still a mainstream singer? How are you navigating that?
Wow, it's definitely affected me in a lot of ways, but I would say for the best, because I respect myself so much. At the same time, I respect others. So I understand individually everyone's perspective. It's also my downside. My team tells me this because I see the best in everyone. So I give everyone the benefit of doubt. So that being said, for me, when I let go of my position as a top tier playback singer in South India, it definitely toppled me from the income I would have made, the money that was coming into me, right? Like I became a student on a scholarship in America, opening refrigerator doors, hoping for food. No, is there food magically appear? No, it doesn't appear magically. So for me, making that move definitely shifted my mindset to a more humble, and it got me more humility. Like I started seeing the artist struggle for what it really is, as opposed to being the big fish in a small pond here. And that's also why I decided to stay back in the US, because I was like, as much as there's a lot more struggle, I was becoming a true artist. It was not handed easy to any of these big artists right now. Like Beyonce and all, like worked her tush off to be where she is, like. But over here, once you have a big song, you're like the epitome of success. It's like crazy, the numbers that you can get as an artist. So I definitely sacrificed a lot of money, especially, and popularity in order to traverse a path that was less taken. But in the process, what I have gained is knowledge that I am willing to share with the younger generation. It has definitely changed from the climate that was when I was in the industry over here, like 2008, 2010, to now, 15, 16 years later. Independent artists have a lot more power with social media and their own like leverage that they can build through virality. But I still see a lot of artists giving their rights up just for that immediate surge.
That's so true. I mean, I remember as a kid, you used to have only Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan, and this Khan and that Khan. But today, social media, it has given the power to a common man. Like I'm a nobody. Like, why would anybody listen to me, right? I'm here sitting, talking to you, and I work in the marketing field. I seek people with, say, 500K followers, 1 million followers, and they're all normal people.
Yes.
That's the power that's been given to them, and that's phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about social media is the talent doesn't go unnoticed. If you're talented and if you're putting yourself out there, it's definitely noticed, right? But there's our generation who's got the talent, and we were like in the cusp of this whole social media revolution that we still don't understand it. Yeah. The younger generation is like, oh, I got this. I just have to do this. And the way I sometimes just give my phone to Shweta, my choreographer. I'm like, you do what you need to do with this phone.
I mean, I work, I have a full-time job. In office, at least once a day, I hear the word boomer and people are like, ugh. Yeah. I'm like, it's okay, you can just explain it to me. It's fine.
Yeah, I was like showing this, like a peace sign on a photo, and they were like, oh, that's so millennial. I paused, I took the camera from them, I was like, I am the reason you have the freedom you have right now. Let me make that very clear to you. I am proud to show the peace sign. I am a proud millennial because we took the burden on our shoulders to provide the path that y'all have as Gen Zs to take so unapologetically and rebelliously, like we made that for you. So have some gratitude. And I just went on showing my peace sign.
Let's, putting aside the artist part of you, as an entrepreneur, how has this path you've chosen make you feel? How do you, if you were to advise anybody entering this music ecosystem, how would you advise them to manage their finances? And how has motherhood impacted you?
Oh, that's like two completely different questions.
Yeah. But that
it's
is
very important.
It is you, right? That
Yes.
is you. That you are a mother and you're an entrepreneur. Both of them are your babies. And
very much. Well, I am still learning finances. In fact, just before on our way here, I was telling my, manager / brand strategist, Mahesh, that, hey, from here on moving forward, I'll give you the ideas. You take over the financial talkings because it takes away the creativity from me. Like what I want to do gets tainted with the idea of money. I'm not, I wouldn't say, like I don't have an irkiness towards money. I love money. I love giving money. I love getting money because I believe it's energy. So the more you give, the more you can get all of that. And I love the idea of a challenge to make money. So that's great. Like if there's something that's there, I'd be like, how can I get that? And how much I need to get. So that's one side of it. But that doesn't mean that I am the best at how I can manage it, right? So I have, along with my partner, embarked on a journey of financial education. And we're both independent contractors. So we have to be on top of our finances to be able to do things the right way because we've fallen way too many times. And we haven't really been taught these things as common knowledge in school, right?
That's a separate topic. But in India, we are taught to not think about money even until we're 21. I mean, it's bizarre. Why would you not want the child to handle their finances? Like, that's literally the rest of their life. Whatever they do, that's the only thing they need to know.
100%. And that brings me to being a mother. Even today, I was talking to my son. He was like, he mentioned something about, I want a dirt bike. His birthday is coming up. So I was like, go bring your piggy bank and count how much money you have. He's 34.
Yeah.
So, but that I want him to understand that things don't just come freely.
No, you should. You should.
So like, even if it's a little bit, just get into the idea of, so he understands. He like, when we go out, he'll be like, this is where Swati, my sister, makes her money. This is where this person makes his money. Like all their offices, they'll point to be like, this is where they go to make money and bring home. So I take a lot of pride in motherhood. I didn't think I would be a good mother because I am a pridey animal. I was. I still am a little bit. Right? You would think so, right?
I think I can say that you still are.
I think so. I definitely know how to make other people have a good time. So for me, like the way I turned a new leaf and also what do you call it? Like adopted a whole different aspect to my multidimensional character was motherhood. I was like, oh, I really like this. I love being a mom. I love imparting the wisdom and the knowledge that I have gained over these years. All the mistakes that I learned from my parents, how I can not be that, stopping generational curses with my generation. And then when I see that I'm doing something wrong with him, me and my husband, we sit down and analyze ourselves. It's like, okay, this is not something that my kid is doing wrong. This is something that I am bringing from my own traumas and imposing it on him. So we sit and grow from it instead of imposing that on him. And I'm still making mistakes, So for me, motherhood has been a game. I was like, this is not working. Let's figure it out, And
how has that impacted you as an artist?
I would say in a very, very positive way because my vision became clearer. My goals became more enhanced. And where I put my time became very, very clear. I was like, you are wasting my time. Next. Because
I know why I'm asking you so much about motherhood is because on the stage you spoke about going through postpartum and going away and writing this beautiful song which you sang. And I loved it personally.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I have to know more about this.
Yeah, that was the second song. So you've been there like through the beginning. Yeah. So yeah, that was the song called The Only One. That's actually on Spotify if you want to listen to it. I was very upset with the whole world after having a baby because I kind of find myself to be well informed, but I had no information about the toll it takes on a woman after you have a child. And I had a baby during COVID. So my parents couldn't come to America. It was just me and my partner. We were by ourselves trying to go through this period. And I fell into severe postpartum depression to a point where I was just like, this is the end of everything, right? And I was taking therapy and I was trying to make, I was aware that this is not me. So I went and told my doctor that something is very different. So give me therapy. So I went to therapy and I came to India when we finally could fly by the time my son had become a year old. And in that moment, my parents would look at me like, you see, this is how I usually, I try to be well dressed and blah. I was just walking around looking like a goon. I didn't care about anything. My mom knew that something was not right, So then after we spent 5 months, and when I went back, my husband and I decided to move to the mountains in California. So we went 7,500 feet above sea level in the clouds. It was called Green Valley Lake, and it was called Living in the Clouds because it was so high up there, and the population was 250 or something. That's all the number of people. And he would go for work, and it was just me and my kid at that point. And I had no option but to sit and face my depression. And in the process, I ended up writing 100 and something songs for during that 6 months, which I just sat. Anytime he went to sleep, I would just write or write. So that song that I sang is called The Only One. It's like, I don't need nobody. I got myself to like take care of myself, and all of those self-empowerment, self-love. I would just go for these long hikes in the snow. I fell back in love with myself in solitude. Most people, when they're depressed, they try to like spend time with people, but I think that's very detrimental. I believe that if you can find yourself in that process, you'll realize how precious you are.
You know, I am so grateful that you are openly talking about postpartum and therapy, because I know so many women who really need help. One, they don't know they need help. Two, there's nobody in their ecosystem who, like your mother helped you, your mother noticed. People notice, but people just say, "Arey, ye to ho jayega. It's just a phase. Chala jayega, chalega."
Yeah.
And that's so sad. I mean, I know parents who don't want to, when they're observing the child going through a trauma, they would rather keep the child in a room. And this has happened very close to me. It's, this incident is very close to my heart. They would rather have the child closed in a room than to let anybody know or let anybody help him or let him seek help on his behalf. It's absolutely bizarre, and it's so, so sad. Something which can be treated and something which can be corrected, and all you have to do is just reach out. But people don't do it.
Yeah, because over here they put you into this category of, oh, you're just crazy, right? Two of my really best friends are bipolar, and I was living with them while they were both going through an episode, and I saw the transition as to how crazy of a personal behavior you can adopt that is bipolar from you in a normal day-to-day situation. And I realized the mind is only as good as the credit you give it, and when they come back from it, they're back to obliviousness as to what happened when they were in that place. So that's also the other reason I see people for who, like, the good that they are. Like, I see the good in them. I give them the benefit of doubt, because we are such complex beings.
Yeah.
And we trivialize, like, we make it so insignificant when someone is going through these issues. And like, I see it in my own family, right? There are so many mental illnesses at a small level. I'm not saying everything is at the bipolar level. We all exhibit it.
It's not an illness. It's a condition. It's just a phase.
Yeah, it's illness as in like something that, like a fever, you take care of and then it goes away. It's curable. But then you don't even want to give it the attribute of it being an illness that can be taken care of. Like, as soon as we point it out to people, they become defensive. They're like, oh, you're trying to teach me. And that's all because of the social conditioning that we've created in society. Like, postpartum depression, nobody told me about this. And that's why I was like, I was so upset. And I was like, this is not me. Because I knew myself so well, I was able to recognize it. So for someone who doesn't know themselves, there's no way they can recognize it. So then you are hoping for a society or an ecosystem of friends and family that can point that out to you. And if you don't have that, then you are ungrounded. You're just floating, right? And grounding is so important. And yeah, so as a woman, there's so much conversations that's yet to be had. And I don't like to call myself a feminist, because that word is very polarizing right now. A lot of people...
Yeah, I don't know. It's misconstrued and...
Yeah. I believe in the concept of egalitarianism, which is, I think men and women have to be equally considered for. A man, they have their strengths. Women, they have their strengths. I can't go and act like I could carry this 100-pound boulder. But at the same time, we are emotionally better at, digesting certain things than a man can do, or someone who's like masculine and feminine energy is more balanced and stuff like that. That's a whole different conversation. We can like do a whole episode on that. But we definitely have to have more conversations about women feeling comfortable to come forward and talk about these postpartum depression kind of things and like, hey, I need help. Like ask for help and don't be afraid of being judged, because the ones who judge you were never meant to be in your circle anyways. The ones who care about you will help you.
So if I were to meet Suvi after 5 years, what will she be doing? Where are you headed in the next 5 years?
Definitely want to be composing music for like movies or shows or whatever. That's like a challenge I'd like to take upon myself, because that's such a male-dominant industry worldwide, not just in India. Definitely also be in a space where my SaaS-based company has a lot of young artists thriving on it.
So I have just 2 more questions about the platform. One is, will this platform, this ecosystem allow Indian artists to get exposure to, musicians or choreographers or producers outside of India?
Yes, because the way I want to plan it is bring my network into it. And I have worked really hard building my network from around the world. So as an artist from, say, there's an artist from Chennai, but he wants, or he or she wants to work with the producer who made Rich Bitch Syndrome, BKLA. I will be able to give them the connect. And these are guys who are Grammy nominated and they work with international artists. So the idea is to bring my network into easy accessibility to artists from here. But besides that, also the knowledge. Like I want to also bring people who teach about the music business. So say you are signed up on Suvi Society. Let's just call the website that for now. As an artist for $100 a year. I don't know. That's the subscription fee. That will help us maintain the platform. And you can access creatives, music directors, either from your own town, if that's the budget you want to work with, or if you're like bawling, say, no, I want my music video director from Japan. You can pick someone from there. So I'm just working to bringing all of the creatives under one roof. And then once we have these creatives, I also want to introduce an investor tier where they are basically lovers of music who want to, like I told you, artists are going to an era where they're selling directly to consumers. Spotify, all these places are turning into a social media platform because they see it. Then they're realizing that consumers are becoming aware of the fact that they're smart and they want to support an artist directly. I'd rather give $100 directly to an artist that will help him do good than give $100 by listening to their music multiple times on Spotify, out of which Spotify will take $90. The artist is only getting 10, right? So the direct to consumer is what's going to be the future of this business. So in that sense, I want to introduce investors onto the same platform. So now they can pick and choose, hey, I see this artist is doing great on your platform. Because we'll have like...
But even if the investor invests in the artist and the artist has listed his song on Spotify, Spotify still earns, right? Or only the artist will earn?
Well, we are looking future, right? We're looking at a future where Spotify is not necessarily the only way you will make money. So the artists will have, like if you think of concepts like NFTs, they're directly selling to the consumers and the artist is making money from the art. So now a song is getting sold for, say, $1, right? You still have to buy these songs. Like if you're a DJ, you have to buy a song. If you're, a curator, you have to buy these songs. You can stream, but that's also just one aspect of it. So when you buy a song, the $1, again, only $0.09 is going to the artist. The rest of it is all going to the middlemen, the distributors, the platform, the streaming platforms and all of that. So now if you remove all of them, the artist will sell the song directly to a consumer for the $1. And they
From where will he send it?
You can like email platforms. At this point, that's another
challenge.
That's not even a challenge. It's just a space that's not yet created. Like this is a call out for what do you call tech nerds to fill the gap, like can you create a platform where an artist can directly sell a song to the consumer? Right now, what I do is I sell a lot of my stuff directly to my email subscribers just via email. It's so simple. My courses, I sell it directly via email. It's not at the level that I want it to be, but it's a working method.
So, from the investor perspective, I have no information or no understanding of the how music should be or which kind of music can actually go viral. But I do love music. If I were to come onto your platform and say, hey, you have 10 artists, like I want to invest, who should I invest in? So would you also give that service to investors where you are able to curate and tell them that, hey, this artist has a higher probability and your ROI is going to be higher with this artist? Is that a service you'll be providing as well?
Why not? Because once you have all this in the back end, we have statistics to tell these artists are the ones doing the most at this point. So we can have a chart, be like A, B, C, D, F, G is the order of the artists on our platform. So obviously the investors will want to like invest in the ones who are doing well.
It's like a VC, right?
Yes.
It's like advisory for a VC.
Yes.
They want to invest in startups, but they need to also have people who understand the industry really well.
And that doesn't exist. That concept doesn't exist at all. And why can't it exist? Because you mentioned in the beginning, right now, the Indian independent artist music is at like some 119 something billion dollars. It's projected to go to some $160 billion. So there's money in this industry. The only difference is artists are not making it. It's the CEOs are making it. All these other people are making it. I'm saying that let's remove them from the middle. The one who's investing should make the money. The one who's putting all the creativity into it should make the money. And then, a service like me will work on a profit sharing basis. So like 80-20, whatever that is for us to determine based on how this whole thing, how much it's going to cost.
So tell me about Rich Bitch Syndrome now.
Rich Bitch Syndrome. Yes. So the song itself is, it comes from this place of the hustle is what's more valuable than the money. Because there's been moments in my life where I've had all the money, like when I was doing Koranapuri, that era, right? I wasn't happy. I didn't feel rich. I was feeling like, ew. And then there's the moment where right now I'm comfortable in life. I wouldn't call myself all money and like walking around with wealth, but I feel so rich. I feel like anything comes my way, if I want it, I can get it. And that is a mindset that cannot come from anything but yourself. So the idea of that song is, I don't need no Jensen kicks to show you that I'm about my business. All I need is a fire inside of me and the drive with God as witness. That's the Rich Bitch Syndrome mentality, So this whole show too, like as much as I was bawling and spending money on everything that you saw there, the idea is to say that if you believe in something and if your heart is able to get it, that is the Rich Bitch Syndrome, and it's an illness. It's a sickness. If I have it, then I can give it to you.
Actually, that's a superpower.
Yeah, it really is. And it takes a lot.
Because it's not easy to think of yourself that way.
Yes, especially, like I've seen it. Like the music video too, which I'm going to be putting out very soon. But the ones who were there at the event got like a little premiere of it. The idea was to show that our culture, our community is where the wealth is. Like the fisher woman was cutting fish and those gold coins falling out of it. And I'm saying Rich Bitch Syndrome, but I'm sitting with literally my friend auto driver from the street that I live on, Shashi. Like I'm sitting in an auto because he makes me happy. When I call him, he'll come and take me to wherever I need to go. And those are like those moments that makes the community feel like you're rich, right? Like when my dad had a little bit of a minor accident outside of our street, and I was in the US, my sister was working, my mom was sitting at home, but that area knows my dad so much that the whole community came together, called the ambulance, took him to the hospital, and then my mom was called. Like, that's the Rich Bitch Syndrome mentality. Like, knowing that the community will come and lift you up is the kind of wealth you can't get anywhere. You know, like I've known wealthy billionaires who feel so lonely in life, and I feel sad. And I always tell myself, if that's the exchange I need to make to be a billionaire, then I'd rather be here. Or I have to spiritually enhance my life in order to be comfortable being a billionaire, you know? Because most people chase the money and forget about life. But life is more important. You're not, you know, you can't be living life with just money. So the idea is to like I was sitting in a 4x4 feet, tiny little room when I wrote that song. And before writing the song, I was thinking, I need this equipment, I need that, and you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I was telling myself, I already have all, like so much. Why am I like trapped in this? I want. And as soon as I had that switch as to like, I have enough, I'm going to work with what I have, and then the rest will come, is the tweak I needed. And that's this song. And after that, this song, I wrote the song a year ago. And the songs that started coming after that, like Aduppa, there was another song that I made. It is like,
I loved Icha as well.
which one?
The Icha?
Oh, Nietzsche.
Nietzsche.
Oh,
Yes,
that's the
I'm sorry.
song,
Yeah, I love that
It's so
as well.
funny. Like, Shweta, this one is for you because the choreographer, when she came up with this step, even sometimes we forget the name of the song and we'll just be like, what's this song?
Yeah, I mean, I just literally said the wrong word and I did this.
Yes, and as soon as you said it, I know that's so good. She's so talented. We just chanced upon each other. I'm so glad for that. Like just like how you chanced upon the show. So yeah, all these songs just started flowing after I changed that little tweak. You know, I was like, I don't need shit tons of money. Excuse my language. To show that I'm wealthy and I'm rich and I have all this. Because at the end of the day, my hustle, my forthrightness, and my, no matter what, I will persevere attitude is what's going to keep me going. And yeah, nobody's been able to bring me down from that.
and that's where you should be. And I'm glad to hear that. And I really am. And I hope that people are inspired by listening to you.
Thank you.
They should be. Because that's where everybody needs to be.
I have a question for you. Were you inspired after the show? Like, tell me your experience.
I actually really loved the show. Like I said, I walked in for a drink after Garba, and my husband was like, you know, let's not go home, let's do something. But all the fun stuff was happening in Phoenix Mall and EA Mall, and we were like, okay, this is close by. I didn't even look at the posters, nothing. They said cover charges. I said, okay, fine. And then I was listening to these young artists, and I was like, okay, this is different. And then you came, and I was like, okay, everybody was dancing, and it was so fun. And like I said, no, we are all like 40 plus.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah. So I was like, my husband was like, okay, are you proud I chose this place? Are you proud? I was like, fine, it's nice.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're okay. Because it was meant to be also.
Yeah, it was really an experience. You know, I really cannot let you go. Please share a few tunes, you know, something that you like, something that you want to share with the viewers.
Yeah. Let me see. Can I do the rap of Rich Bitch Syndrome?
Please do that.
Let me see. Let me just...
I wanted to ask you, but I thought, okay, maybe you can't do that here at the... You know, I don't know, maybe it takes something to do that, or you have to be somewhere else to do that. I was like, okay.
No, I can do the verse. Yeah, I can do the verse of it. Let me just like quickly recollect all melodies. Okay. No, this rich bitch ain't got skim. I'ma go down on a lyrical whim. Words so heavy, put me up with the blim. When I put the trigger, you be left with the limb. Culture so rich, made a whole race swim like the queen on the throne with a crown full of sin. You can keep stealing, got a temple within. I swim in my winds like Phelps, it got fins. If you see me sinking, I'll be drowning, grinning. I am so rich, I'll start over, buy myself some living. I don't need no jets and kicks to show you that I'm by my business. All I need to thrive is a fire inside of me with God as witness. Rich bitch syndrome, rich bitch syndrome. I got rich chick syndrome, rich chick syndrome. I got. You might have to like. over there.
No, please, no.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. Yes.
It was so awesome. Thank you. I mean, I hope you enjoyed being here.
I had so much fun, Rashmi. You've been wonderful. This was like such a wholesome conversation where I could talk about everything that I am. Like Mahesh over there, it's always like, you are not going to do ridiculously stupid interviews anymore because, you know, I've been like called to all these like, I won't name the names, interviews. And it's usually just like lame questions and doesn't go anywhere. You have actually invigorated my soul by asking questions that I want to talk about. And I appreciate you for that.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad you took time and came here. And I can't wait to see you working with Suvi Society. I want to be a part of it.
Please.
And I'll be following your work.
Thank you. Thank you.